The removal of a Christian who's unrepentant is biblical. But as the Bible shows, many will twist even that element of Christianity. Paul mentioned in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 a person who had to be removed, and they were told, we don't associate with them. The problem with the Watchtower, number one problem, is that they don't maintain Matthew 18:15 through 17, which is a three-step process in order to finally find out whether a person is unrepentant. And the goal of each meeting is to gain your brother. So then it is possible that a person may walk in that meeting unrepentant, in denial, but then with spiritually qualified men, they're able to help them to become humble and repentant, and therefore not having to be removed from the congregation. And so that has to be there first. If elders are on a committee, as they call it, and they cannot be impartial, if they have a problem with a certain person, then they should excuse themselves from that and put someone on there who can control their feelings in that regard and give impartial judgment and impartial effort. Another problem is what it comes down to as far as what association means. The Watchtower has brought it to don't speak to them. And I know they've lightened up their measures somewhat, I think, a little bit, but they're still pretty much on that don't speak to them, calling people an apostate and all this type of thing, without even doing what Titus 3:10 says. When you don't follow the Bible rules, you start passing out bad judgments, and people suffer because of that. Many people need to take a good look at 1 Kings chapter 13. And there we see a situation where we're dealing with some real apostates. King Jeroboam and all who were with him were worshiping at an altar to a false god, a calf worship. So they were caught in the act, and they were defiant. But notice, even though they were apostates, God sent his prophet to them to warn them. Now, when they wanted him to come and eat and drink, he wouldn't do that. But he still had the conversations to try to help them. And God did that over and over again, causing his prophets to rise up early in the morning to go and warn his people. People who knew that what they were doing was wrong, but they were still engaging in it. And God was still sending those prophets to try to gain them. But they could not eat or drink with them. That was the key. As this prophet in 1 Kings 13, he knew that edict, that he could not eat or drink with them, but he was to deliver the message. So he was obeying up to the point he got to an older prophet, and the older prophet told him, well, I heard from God that you can eat now. And the older prophet lied to him. The prophet who delivered the message believed the lie. No doubt he was hungry, and he was willing to accept a message that would satisfy his need to eat, instead of being obedient to what God told him to do. Don't eat or drink with them. And when he sat down to eat and drink with them, that's what cost him his life. Same thing in the Christian arrangement. If someone has been given the opportunity to repent after the 3 steps, and they don't listen, then they become like a man of the nations. We don't associate with them. But that doesn't mean that we don't say anything to them. That doesn't mean that we don't show any concern for them. If you go back to 1 Kings 13, Jeroboam was struck by God and afflicted his arm because of his rebellion. But he begged the prophet to pray for him, that his arm be restored. And the prophet prayed for him, and his arm was restored. So concern for others, speaking to even apostates, is not a sin in the Bible. But the associating part is when you're sitting down, eating and drinking with them, and so forth. Notice how Paul puts it in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, starting at verse 13. He says, but as for you, brethren, Do not grow weary in doing good. And if anyone does not obey our word in this epistle, note that person and do not keep company with him. Notice, don't associate with him. See, we got that part. That he may be ashamed. Yet do not count him as an enemy, but admonish him as a brother. Notice that. Even though you didn't keep company with him, you didn't associate with him, does it say the communication is cut off? No. Notice it says you still want to admonish him as a brother. Just because they sin, it's not our job to condemn. We don't condemn people. We don't say, well, you messed up. We gave you the 3-step process in Matthew 18:15 through 17. You still didn't listen, so you're condemned. We don't do that because anybody can change. It's just like back in the time of Jeremiah and the prophets. God just kept sending his prophets over and over again to try to help his people to turn back before destruction came. Christians take the same position. We still show concern for those people. We still show natural affection for loved ones. We still check on their health, and just like the prophet did in 1 Kings 13, but we don't associate with them. We don't eat or drink with them. And so therefore we keep that balance there. Hopefully you'll be able to strike a chord with them. You'll be able to snatch them out the fire, as the book of Jude brings out, and bring them back and turn them around. And that brings much joy in the heavens. The Watchtower, they are a cult. We know that because it's about what their leaders say, not what the scriptures say. And coupled with the lack of love for truth, it makes them a cult. And so a cult always has to suppress people from speaking to others who have left the cult because they're trying to protect their power. But when you're marinated in truth, you don't need to be doing any of that. And that truth, that love of truth, gives you the ability to help brothers, sisters, anyone who has left, and admonish them and help them to come back. And when I was an elder and we had judicial committees, I don't remember following Matthew 18:15 through 17. That we messed up on, or I messed up on. But one thing I did keep in mind, and my grandfather always kept this on my mind, is about mercy. And so when we sat down there with them, we were trying our best to try to gain them. And sometimes we were able to, sometimes we weren't. But we should never give up on people. And that's why Paul said, admonish him as a brother. Association versus admonishing a brother or sister. They're two different things. They're not the same. And so when they shut people off like that, like the Watchtower does, it shows that they don't have the love of God. They got a brand of love, but it's not the love of God. And again, when you're speaking the truth, that love remains because the truth cannot be defeated. And so you can reach out and help people.